morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. It is a wonderful Saturday morning, and every week we talk about issues and things that have an impact and implication on us, on all of us, globally, locally, family, and everywhere else. I definitely want to dwell upon the crisis or the situation brought about by Wuhan virus, for the lack of any better understanding. COVID-19, Wuhan virus, call it as you like. But for me, it started from the Wuhan labs. So I will call it Wuhan labs, Wuhan virus. This has brought about, in addition to massive economic damages, massive global pandemic in terms of loss of life. More than 500,000 people have died in the US alone in a peacetime. 2.9 million people have died globally. Economies have gone upside down. Families have got destroyed. Not only that, workplace culture has changed. People are working from home. Those who can afford a better house, bigger house, they are operating in a different way. But those who are living in apartment, it is a massive stress. Even Netflix has produced a movie to how to catch better sleep. Now, this is an important thing to remember that, it's very eerie actually for me, because way back in 1983, when I was working with Reserve Bank of India in Bangalore, there was a management consultant from Harvard, and he talked about his experiences of life, and he talked about US life. And he said that in near future, starting from 1990s, but stepping into 2000s, the United States will be very appreciative of yoga, meditation, the Hindu spiritual way of life, because these guys are so stressed out. Now, 1983 October, we didn't have concept of what stress means. Tension lene ka nahi, dene ka hai is a Bombay language which we know. But stressed out, people get stressed out because you are successful, working hard. That was news to us. But now we are living in that scenario today. Wuhan virus has created enormous stress on everyone, from sleep to family to congestion. We are living in a world of something that we had never thought. In my case, it was different because I learned meditation rather early in my life. It has been 40 years that I have been doing meditation morning and evening, 20 minutes. I follow TM practice. Today, we are going to discuss this issue about how do we handle the stress in our life? How do we handle life coming at us in more ways than one? And I have a compatriot and a fellow traveler in the name of Dr. Krishna Bhatta, who has been with me on this program earlier on. And Dr. Bhatt is a remarkable individual. Apart from being a surgeon and a urologist, he lives in Maine. He's also in severe, deep religious and spiritual journey of his own, because he has seen death from very close quarters. He's written a book. He's gifted me that book, and I'm reading that as I speak with you. The important part here is that he created an infrastructure of relax. And I'm part of as a full disclosure, I'm part of the advisory board. And, it gelled with me when the whole idea came out. The world needs to know how to relax. The other gentleman who is with us today, he's Mr. Santosh Pandey. Thank you very much, Santoshji, for keeping awake. He lives in Luxembourg, and he's involved in a very important corporate relationship with Mittal family, which should be sufficient as your introduction. He's a chartered accountant by profession. And he is also part of the advisory board of Relax Group, the app that we have launched. And we will talk about that. How do you relax? How do you deal with, entire situation? So Dr. Bhatt, welcome to the program. And I wanted to ask you, tell us about the inspiration. I know my inspiration 40 years ago. What was your inspiration to launch into Relax the way you have done? And friends, just as we are watching this, just go to whichever phone system you have, whether it's Android or iOS, look up the app, as you, Dr. Krishna, will explain to you what it is.
Thank you, Vibhuti. Thanks for having me on your show. And it's nice that you asked about the inspiration of relax. By the way, relax is RELAXX with 2X. Relax kind of um, atmosphere. And I've been meditating like you have been meditating for a long time. And it has been my passion. And I love going to Himalayas and spend, days and days out there, been in many camps, a week-long camp or 10-day camps in different places. And one of my passion has been to meditate wherever I go in any temple. It doesn't matter whether it's Kashi Vishwanath or a Buddhist monastery in Leh or Ladakh. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's always preferable. You get the whole vibrations already set there. So doing all these things, and I see how meditation has been taught in India or in the West, I could feel that we could do a little different approach. And that's when the relax kind of the whole event happened. And one of the things I will say, for lack of any other word, I turned meditation upside down. So normally people say, you have a problem, I'll fix you, do this meditation. Or they will tell you how to do meditation. You sit down, you take a mantra, you watch your breathing or relax your toes and legs. And they're all good techniques. There's no question about that. And we have also got those in our app as well, some deep meditations. But when I say turned upside down, I took the core of meditation, which is meditation always happens in silence. Like sleep, you create a situation surrounding, you switch off the light, you become cozy with a comforter, and then sleep happens to you. You can't force the sleep on you. The same way, meditation always happens in silence. So I took that silence and created this terminology called intermittent silence. Which has got the essential components, no frills, just 4 essential components. And you start there and then you build everything around it. You add breathing to it, it becomes vipassana. You add chakra to it, it becomes chakra meditation. But basically, if you practice intermittent silence, that itself is a complete package in itself, and then you can build on that. So that's the beginning of how relax happened. And we can go into other areas of intermittent silence, because it does get into something that I think Einstein practiced intermittent silence. And I can give you my view on that.
Sure. Thank you very much for the very inspiring story that how you talked about. Santoshi, coming to you, you and I belong to the world of corporate. So you have been, so we belong to the world of corporate, which is so much full of imperfections, as I call it. So it is. I had shared a platform with General Malik, VP Malik, who was military commander in chief at the time when the entire Kargil thing happened, and we were on the same platform in Delhi, sharing the platform on leadership. And he said that for us in the military, the dictum is country first, battalion second, me last. And that's the hierarchy of values that operates in there. In the corporate world, I said, it's me, mine, and myself. So damn the country, damn company, damn everything. It's me, myself, and me, mine, and myself. There's a very two different operating procedures, right? Operating systems. Talking about relaxed meditation, which is highly spiritual. I have been through this. So I am not a novice. I'm having this conversation with you more towards from the point of view of how do we make these values seep in the corporate life. And that also is related to the fact that when we work on transformation strategies and about human potential, this relaxed meditation, equanimity of mind, and the balance between mind, body, and flash, splash, consciousness, spirit, call it any which way you like, is key. Our performances are highest when we are aligned fully well. So, how did you get involved with this, the entire relax purpose and mission? And how do you see it emerging in the corporate world uh, as an effective tool in the post-coronavirus world, where everybody now knows there is no alternative but to relax, to get good sleep?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show, Vibhuti. I think it's a wonderful question which you have asked from a corporate life's perspective. I think corporate world is considered to be a kind of rat race, that everybody is running against each other and everybody has a definitive objective for himself. Of course, all other objectives are consequential of what you fulfill for yourself. But in all this, people are so much stressed and burned out today because of different kind of pressure with which they work. They are trying to explore different ways how to keep their mental well-being. The corporates also have a challenge to address this for the employees. So I see a lot of HR people, and the training people, they are struggling to design something to offer to the employees, which is not adequate. So I saw that there are many apps, there are many programs, we invite trainers, etc. So, but they are not giving anything holistic, okay? At best these days, it has become very fashionable to give you a mindfulness training, how to become a mindful person while you are working. But last year, during the pandemic, it so happened that during one of a cultural program, which Dr. Krishna and I were sharing, a common friend introduced to both of us. And Dr. Krishna introduced me to intermittent silence, And it hit me like a, thunderbolt. Because we all were sitting in home, we were working, more than ever. Because normally when you work in office, you work in a certain framework of time, But when you are working from home, you don't ever realize the boundary between official time, your personal life. Everything was kind of mingled, okay? Mm-hmm. And this intermittent silence, when I came to know, struck me. I did practice. I took some lessons, quickly from Dr. Krishna, and it helped me. So I thought, oh, bingo, this is such an excellent idea. You don't need to become mindful. You just need to be opposite, that you need to empty your mind, your thoughts, go silent, create that vacuum, that space, which is absolutely missing. So when you become mindful, you are still feeling something in your mind, okay? And intermittent silence is just emptying your mind so that there is a space, there is a vacuum, and that allows a lot of good things to come to your mind and to your life. So that's how I got connected and hooked to the idea, And I thought, yeah, this is such a wonderful thing. Why don't you make it a little bigger and offer it to the larger world? So that's how it all started,
And that's such a wonderful personal story, because it happened. It worked, right?
It does, definitely.
It worked and it works. That's another part of this. So that's important. Krishnaji, he talked about the stress and strain that the corporate life goes on. But one of the things which we have struggled, and not we struggle, we always have. Life comes in varieties of ways. The happiness, sorrow, everything comes to us. The meditation for me has enabled me to deal with life coming at me in any way. My response is calibrated to that extent. Now, what is important here is the good things of life people all know, but they don't do it. My favorite example is weight. Putting on weight is so easy. Everybody knows what not to do to put on weight, but we always end up putting on weight and then we try to lose, which is so much harder. So I propounded a theory, it's my definition, is that the present value of consumption and entertainment far outweighs any likely future gain by not having two gulab jamuns today or not having my drink today. So tell us about this one, that how is in the plethora of offering that exists around the world. I don't think anybody doesn't know what meditation is, what mindfulness is, what silence is. These are all beautiful spiritual virtues. How is relax different, and how do you see it making a difference through intermittent silence? You're silent. You're silent.
Your first question was, how do people get started? And that is a million-dollar question. And you remember Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, Chanchalahi Mana Krishna. And Krishna's first answer was Abhyasena tu kaunteya. You have to practice. Whether it is meditation, whether it is computer, whether it is classroom, you have to put the hours behind it.
Right.
So that one, I think each individual will have to make that decision. And what practice they start is different. They can start any practice, whether it is relaxed practice or some other practice. But if they're not doing anything, then of course, it will be hard for you or I or anyone to convince them. But one thing I found very strange, that many people, at least in the state I live in, Maine, and some of the people I interviewed on Relax Radio, they will say they don't do meditation. But one of the guy I interviewed, he's an author, but he says, I used to play guitar and I knew how to turn the volume down. So I turned my chatter volume down to 0, and then the flow starts. So what he's talking about is what he's doing is meditation. He just doesn't want to call it. And he says, I'm not a meditator. So many times, people who go besides a river or take a walk in the woods, they are in a way spending some time with themselves. That's meditation. But as far as relax is concerned, one of the concepts we have, as you mentioned earlier, body, mind, and flame of consciousness, we put a lot of emphasis and focus on body and mind. We make very fit body. There are people who can, do boxing or sports or tennis and be champions. There are people in the mind area that we have really progressed very far. We can go to moon and Mars and, planets. That's all the, expansion of the mind. But we have not paid attention to our individual consciousness. We just let it be there. We don't even talk about it, because the classic teaching is body, mind, and soul, or body, mind, and spirit. And that individual consciousness, although it is mentioned in our scriptures, in Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, and even in Patanjali, but somehow we ignore that we also have individual consciousness. I know you sit on some boards of consciousness. Whenever there is a talk on consciousness, very few people talk about individual consciousness. The fact that we can work on that is I think, one emphasis Relax has made. And if you grow that flame, you gain energy. And the more energy you have, the higher the energy, more peaceful you are. The lower the energy, more irritable you are. So I say, I'm not against go-go culture of America. You continue that, just bring that peace with you. So that is what Relax is emphasizing on.
That's brilliant. Santoshji, I would take that conversation to further, is that we live in a remarkable imperfect world, right? Where the references to our spiritual text, Hindu spiritual text, is remarkably, we have not focused on elements that matter. We stayed on in one or two areas, but the balanced development happens only when you are completely aligned, right? That's what is important. That's where I learned the language from sports, that a sportsman is in a zone where he can do nothing wrong, right? His strike rate is highest. He knows exactly what to do to get the desired outcome. Not 100% of the time, but the outcome is far above in terms of averages compared to the rest of the peer group. However, Same sportsman, after a certain point in time, begins to miss the shot. He can't make the same play, and then he retires. Right? In the corporate world that we live in, we know the amount of imperfection that and conflicts that remain. How does one introduce this concept of equanimity? And I use the phrase, how do we achieve this elevated equilibrium that some of these spiritual practices bring for you in not only individual, personal, corporate life, but success and the values? That's important. And I will drop in another line here that recently in the state of Alabama, they banned yoga. And I will come to that in the next moment after you have said whatever you have to say now. Yeah.
Okay, so it's very important, in the corporate world, people are trying to chase something without understanding the core of it. Somebody is trying to be achieving excellence either in production or in, different field of function which they are doing. But at the end of the day, we have to align ourselves with our own purpose, our colleagues' purpose, our boss's purpose, and the overall company's purpose. What I believe is that every time you run into a conflict, there is some kind of misalignment among all these objectives.
Right.
And once you understand yourself, if you are aligned with yourself, your core, you know what you want to achieve, you have 100% chances that you will be able to align with others as well.
Right.
So my fundamental, management principle is all the conflicts are happening in corporate world because somewhere you are not able to align, and that alignment is not happening because either you are not convinced or you are not able to convince somebody. So somewhere you are lacking the, kind of communication which has to happen to create that perfect, alignment.
Right.
And I think this yoga, relax, whatever we call it, meditation, you get peace within you, only then you can communicate with yourself. If you're not communicating with yourself, how the hell can you communicate with anybody else and convince?
Right.
Okay, and I come back to the question which you asked to Dr. Krishna previously. How do we know everything, okay? But why don't we go and hit the treadmill in the morning? And why don't we take, 2 spoons less sugar? Why don't we postpone that eating of rasgulla for another time? It's all about communicating to yourself and convincing yourself. So I basically, if I have to think, in management terms, and when I communicate with kids, because I interact with young generation quite a lot to train them, I only tell them that communication is the bottom line of everything, whether it is happening with you, with your son, with your parents, with your wife, or with anybody, okay, in your personal life or professional life. If you're not able to have a coherent communication, then you are creating a problem for yourself. It can be a small or it can be a bigger problem, but definitely you are creating something for yourself as a problem.
That's so true. Communication is the key. I have come upon with a thought process of mine that when we humans look down upon animals, right?
Yeah.
And that some of the reasons are, one of the things is that we have language, we can communicate. And I just realized it is like an epiphany. It came to me as a thought. Do we really communicate? No, we talk. We convey a message. We give, we convey a thought, convey a message, and we give a direction. But that's where it ends. Actually, animals communicate. I mean, it is so amazing. I'll tell you, in front of my house, I keep a bowl of water. Until I moved in the house, I used to see all the pigeon droplets, in my veranda. Then I started putting water, and that dropping stopped completely. Even the animals communicated, realized that this guy is giving us water. Not a drop ever since then. And I began to wonder. I see the pigeons are no longer afraid of me. When I step out, they are not scared of me. They flip, they stay there. But I communicate with my dog. I communicate with him. He listens to sign. When I tell him sofa, how does he know the word sofa? I tell him, go to the sofa, go to the bed, go to a window, go to door. He listens and he responds. We humans complicate communication because we have our intention is different. And the intention is different because our value systems are different. Because in the West, which has impressed the world around us, where material welfare is the most important element of success. बड़ा घर है, बड़ी गाड़ी है, but nobody talks about बड़ी बीवी है. So they all talk about big car, big house. How do we align that mind in coming to terms with the reality? So what does relax do? Krishnaji, I will ask you this particular thing with a point of view of, as I open the app and I see this, I understand it. Fortunately for me, I can claim that I understand what is going on there. How does the rest of the world understand? How does the youth understand? You know, like one thing is there, definitely there. People have a lot more knowledge and information available to them than we had in our time. So, like my father used to say, mother used to say, you guys will have a better late life because you know a lot about things. So, how will the young people, who are you reaching out to most? The politicians are your target market, or the youth, the corporate executives? Who do you think we should focus? We as a community, the three of us, we are part of the team. Who should who must we reach out to as guys, try it out? It's cool.
So Vibhuti ji, Santosh ji started in the beginning that we should start with young people. So we have a whole program there in the category of school wellness, which starts from preschool, maybe a couple of minutes or less than 2 minutes for them, more like fun, but they understand the basics of, something like beyond mind and body. And then it goes up through all the grades to teachers, teenagers, parents, and to all of us. We haven't gone into corporate world yet, but Calm and Headspace, they already have contracts with corporate world. And it question of, we will probably reach out to them as well. But I think we all need, but younger we start, the better it is from that point of view. There is something I wanted to bring here bring back to the intermittent silence and the inner universe, especially because your audience and you will definitely appreciate that. And that is a terminology. So once you go in your inner universe with intermittent silence, like Santoshi said, you know your inner universe. You know that thoughts are transiting, some sound is traveling, there is energy there. So you feel that, all that, but then you create an inner theater. And inner theater, I have examples in this country as well, but think of Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna was able to see Mata, Kalima. And I love that story when I read. And I'm not 100% because I didn't read it firsthand, but he could communicate with Ma Kali, and as if she's standing right there. But that is happening in his inner theater. His image power is so much that he could, bring her there. But then a guru comes, Totapuri, because Ramakrishna wanted to go beyond that. He wanted Nirakar. And he asked Totapuri, what should I do? And he said, bring a sword and cut Kalima. He said, where do I bring the sword from? He said, from where you brought Ma Kali. So after a few days, he gets the sword and Ma Kali is there. And now he says, I have this sword, but I can't, she's my mom. The relationship he had in his inner theater was that, Kali Ma is mother and, worship. How can you cut her into pieces with a sword? So it is said that Totapuri said, okay, I will scratch your forehead And in that pain, you should do that. And the story goes on to say that he did that. And that's when Ramakrishna Paramahansa got the Nirakar, that Swarup. So this, we don't all have to do that, but a kid, an imaginative kid, just imagine if he can create his inner theater, he can think about what the interview is tomorrow and process it in the inner theater, and then go and do the interview, because the brain doesn't differentiate whether it is coming from inner theater or it's coming from outside. He's already rehearsed it. He's already practiced it. And you coming from corporate world, you know that people do visualize sale. So I'll stop here about the inner theater. We can talk about inner conversation.
That's a very, very valid point. I wanted to refer, because we live in America. It's a very unique country in its own way, and Western Europe is what it is. What I'm trying to get to you is that recently, for example, you refer to Ma Kali, you refer to an experience. In the minds of the Western people, our practices have some kind of a lack of awareness about them. And we are responsible for not communicating it to them for the meaning and the purpose that it is. That's a very important dynamics to the whole process. So, for example, it is real story that in Alabama, they have banned yoga because it will lead to spread of Hinduism here. That triggered my mind that I thought there was this country practice freedom of religion. So if there is a particular practice of yoga and meditation that brings about a shift in the life of people to transcend from religious rituals to a spiritual being, that's what the world needs today, right? So how do we deal with that scenario? Because I said this to several of my Indian counterparts on Jaipur Dialogue yesterday, that let's learn to be responsive with becoming sincerely funny. I wish Karnataka or Assam or Bihar or some state had passed a similar resolution that complementing Alabama, we are banning all Christian missionaries from our state because they are spreading Christianity here. That's the point which I'm trying to say, because our practices have been construed and have been attacked in this particular country. While they are totally comfortable with the US ambassador to United Nations talking about that America is a racist country. She said this statement in 21st century a few months ago, is a racist country. You and I know that in Europe for Champions League football, there are black players are being abused left, right, and center by throwing bananas and calling them monkey sounds. And Champions League is talking about respect, ban racism. They are leaning on the ground to convey against racism, which is right, but it exists. This world is talking about racism as if it is my problem, but your caste problem is my problem too. So University of Southern California had a 3-hour session castigating us on our caste system. And I said, go fix yourself. You say charity begins at home, fix your problem, then come to tell us what to do about us. Leave us alone. In that atmosphere, Santoshji, how would you say that we respond to this challenge? Because people will paint this as if it is a Hindu Kali thing which they demonize. And I said to my black friends here, they were totally speechless for a moment. That do you realize that any religion in the world that has supported black color is us Hindus. Krishna is known as Shyam because he was dark skinned. And we have a goddess called Kali to kill a particular evil that nobody could kill.
Yeah.
So we devised a woman in black to perform a task that nobody could do. They said, really? I said, yes, you must know about that. So how do we connect that part? It's very important for this part. Will relax be construed as backdoor entry of Hindu philosophy? Because calm and others are done by others. They are the white people who have done it. Are we going to, do we have any strategic plan to deal with that situation?
Well, I think all these, petty things, or tutu meme, as we call it, this is mine and this is yours.
Right.
I think this is a result of ignorance and absence of knowledge. Okay. I think the best thing is that making people aware and dispel the darkness, into their lives. That is the purpose, I think. So
That's right.
Yeah, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya. So if people are knowledgeable enough, they will not have these kind of petty discussions. And as far as relax goes, I don't think relax has any religious connotation at all. It relates to a child as much as to an adult. Anybody can do it. Any intelligent mind or non-intelligent mind, you don't need anything. Anybody can do it. It doesn't need a special color, creed, or race or religion. So it's transcendental. It's for humanity.
Absolutely. And that's what the beauty of the belief system is. That's our Sanatana Dharma is all about that, So Krishnaji, as you are envisaging the future, how do you see it moving forward? Like the saying goes that, in this modern world, we teach to the corporates that many, many strategic things have become commodities. Technology is a commodity now. What was once upon a time an edge, it's a commodity now. If you wait for 2 months, the same technology, somebody pays premium money, you can pay heavy discount on that. So in terms of offering, what are the scalable options that you have that people will be feeling attracted to it as we speak?
Vibhuti ji, I can give you a roadmap, but I will tell you an answer differently.
Sure.
The whole app idea happened. Somehow I got connected with Vibhuti ji. Somehow I got connected with Santosh Pandey. Somehow we got connected with Prajwal in India, who is an amazing developer. Somehow Dan Reardon became the president. Somehow, for no reason, there are two other partners now, Sheriana Boyle and Kezia from London, who are creating content like for this, for the school system, school wellness and emotional detox. And that they're not creating their own content and putting on us. They're creating content on the principles of relax, the intermittent silence, inner conversation, inner theater, right. That kind of thing. I don't think I had imagined where we are today. So I don't know. You guys are the business guys. You tell me, where do you see this going? Santoshi?
Go ahead, Santoshi.
I think, it will take its own course. If I believe that if any idea has a power, or the idea is good enough, and there are people sincerely behind it, like Dr. Krishna and Dan, the idea has to go and take its own course. So I'm pretty confident that they will go a long way. And because especially I trust the idea, I gave it to my 9-year-old son, and he did use it. And he wrote such a long list of reviews for Dr. Krishna, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and what he wants to be improved. So if you can generate such kind of engagement, from people across the board, then you are sure that you are on the right path. You are engaging with the right, audience. You have struck a chord. And as Dr. Krishna said, that he has gathered people around him, and not by, paying them heavy money or any kind of other attraction, but just because of simple power of the idea. So then it creates a lot of positivity for me that, yes, it has, long way to go.
Right. No, when Dr. Bhatta and myself, we talked about it, because I know this subject matter, I know this subject issue, and I immediately, the entire conversation of the Bankers Club rekindled in my mind, and I shared with him on this. And that's what is important, that I'm glad that you are, Dr. Bhatt, you are becoming the instrument and making your idea work. Because, many people have ideas, very few people are able to take it forward. And then, as a saying, that nature conspires to collaborate. So the example that you give was of how people joined the bandwagon, how people joined the movement to make this work. And that's what is important. That's what is encouraging. That it did not start as a business proposition, quote unquote. It started as the intent to help and serve people. As one of my favorite statements is, that it's a pleasure to serve yourself at times. Like, so this becomes one of those tools in which we can serve ourselves, because the performance becomes great if you are in a relaxed state of mind. Because I bring those experiences from the battlefield of sports, when the coach tells you calm down. You have seen this happen when the coach does this hand gesture, calm down, take it easy, right? Go back to the basics. That's what life is all about. We are hypercharged because we have lost track of our life in more ways than one. So it is very important. Now, I wanted to ask you one question to totally unrelated. And that is important because political leadership is critical to many ideas happen or not happen. Political leadership is key. Business leadership comes next. We are witnessing today in a major country like United States, major clash of leadership. Can we convey them, hey guys, just all of you together go silent for 10 minutes, no TV interviews, no statement to the press, calm down? Because every politician is shaping the narrative of conversation around the country. And that's important. That leadership is the most visible leadership. And that's the leadership goes into media, unfortunately used as communication. They are distorting communication. I wish we humans became like animals and learned to communicate like animals. We will become better humans, perhaps. But we are not communicating well. So, how do you think, if I were to ask you, let's reach all the 450 congressmen, House representatives in House, and 100 senators, how do we do it? After all, they are all working to serve the grandchildren in whose name they exploit their whole population. That's my anger about that. I may not look angry, but that's a frustration. That how do we change the landscape of political leadership or corporate leadership? Today, corporate leadership is so divided between left and right. They are playing games openly. Nobody cares. In reality, I can tell you, because I've worked with a lot of them, nobody cares. That's so sad. Whatever it is there, how do we help that situation? Because we live in a community. We are not out of it yet. Everything that happens impacts us, has implication for us. Whether you have 13 judges in Supreme Court, whether you have $2,000 worth of gift coming every month, or your job is gone, people, family is lost, everybody has the impact and implication of life happening around us. How do we deal with that, Doctor?
Vibhuti ji, as I think Vivekananda said once, give me, 100 people, I'll change the world. I don't need 400 senators, just give me one, let me. So you can see one thing for sure that I'm sure Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, and the lifestyle he lives. And one person, who has done spiritual practice, who has done meditation, deep meditations, in an important role can make a big difference. So yes, I think it should happen. Will it happen? So that I come back to Santosh's idea thing. If the idea is strong, and if 100 million people have downloaded, say, calm, it means there is something going on in this country. Some sort of change is happening. People looking for something. Every corporate, every hospital, every school has a wellness program. They may not be doing exactly the thing that they should do, or they could do better, but there is some sort of awakening happening in that direction, and we can feel positive about it. But before we finish, Vibhuti, I did want to bring back, in the beginning I said, I think Albert Einstein practiced intermittent silence. I want to bring it back because you said I put my idea. And I don't know if I want to own the idea, but let me explain what he said and what are the steps of the inner conversation that he I think, practiced. So he says, I think 99 times and nothing happens. I stop thinking, I swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. So now let me analyze from the beginning. I think 99 times. I think that's an important step. You have to start thinking about something, and thinking not once, but in repetitive thinking. Brainstorm on that as much as you can. Then you stop thinking, and then you swim in silence. You're not sitting silent in silence. And I say that the silence that we talk about is the silence not of a graveyard. It's not a silence of death. It's a silence of the garden where the trees are blooming, birds are chirping, leaves are rustling, or the silence of a river flowing, or silence of a lake. So it's a living silence. So he swims in that. He goes in and does something there. And then the flow starts. And that's how most creativity happens. You just don't realize it. But these are the 4 steps he describes very clearly. And that's what I said, that all these thoughts that have come, they've come from the flow from there. And that's what I'm sharing with people.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. But once again, back to, I can't help talking to you about corporate part of it because we are deeply involved there. You are an accountant. I'm a banker. We know the numbers game. The people play with that. So, as sometimes somebody, I will say it in a laughing sense, not casting aspersion on your profession. If accountants became okay, there will be no corruption happening, financial jugglery happening. But then before the accountants become evil, the bankers are equally important because, hey, we are the ones who create a problem. We give money for things that are required, and then there are laws. So there is a thing which is, I am reminded of one particular, you talked about, Dr. Bhatt, you talked about, feeling and listening to the sound and everything else. I'm taken back to a movie, Enter the Dragon, when Bruce Lee, after his first showcasing of his skills, a young boy comes to him and he says, feel it, listen, don't see, feel and listen. That's what is all about. So, like when we go into nature, we experience the sound, the rustle of the leaves and the quacking of a duck or any bird. Everything is a sound of nature, and that's what is beautiful about life. That if we only began to listen, not hear, life will change because our communications will improve thereafter. That's important. Knowing the word, knowing the language doesn't mean I know how to communicate. Mugging up the dictionary doesn't make me a linguist, doesn't make me a champion of the language. It's only when we put things in practice. And you talked about body, like individual consciousness, body. I believe that unless and until people embody the competence, it doesn't happen. So, Santoshji, my objective is, like he said, he needs one senator, one company where we can talk about, where you feel in your interactions that somebody can benefit from it. Individual consciousness, individual awareness.
See, there are people already benefiting from this. For example, I can give, like in normal corporate meetings, in the boardrooms, what do? We have a problem, we all just gather together and say, okay, let's brainstorm. But we don't have to create brainstorm in our brain to find a solution, right? Rather, we have to all go calm, think about the issue or the problem, and the solutions start appearing by itself, And then we bring the ideas. So it starts with the silence. Okay. Unless you are silent, you are not talking to yourself, the ideas do not come. Okay. We have seen many examples from ancient times till modern times. In ancient time, you know that all the powerful mantras and yantras, they appeared to our rishis, who were, we can call in modern parlance as scientists. Like the most powerful word, the Gayatri mantra came to Rishi Vishwamitra after long silence or tapasya. Okay.
Right.
So you can hear the godly things when you are silent, when you are in your inner theater, in your inner conversation. Similarly, in modern day, fast forward, we know Steve Jobs went to India. He found a guru, Nim Karoli Baba, and suddenly his life turned around. This is what people at large know. But what did he found? He did not find anything extraordinary, magical, etc. He just found how to become silent, how to discover inwards. And then he listened to himself, he found the idea. Similarly, Mark Benioff from Salesforce, he has described himself in his book that he was, confused what he wants to achieve in life. He didn't know. He went to his boss, Larry Ellison, and he said, okay, I'm so confused in my life. I need a break. He said, okay, you go to Bahamas or Hawaii, take a holiday, 6 months. He came back, he said, I'm still confused. What to do? Then he said, okay, 2 months more, please go away, clear your mind and thoughts, and then come back. And he went to India, and he is holidaying in Kerala. And there he found a guru, a lady, and she somehow, trains him in this meditation, silence, and inner conversation. And bingo, he gets an idea, he comes back, and he gives his resignation letter to Larry. He says, thank you very much. I have found my purpose, okay? So now I'm launching my own company, Salesforce. And Salesforce is now $230-40 billion company today,
Right.
So this is the power of, inner conversation, which one can create. And this is what I believe that this can help, relax can help people to be trained to have this conversation. It is not a monopoly of one Steve Jobs or one Mark Benioff or one Vishwamitra,
And that
we
was a
all can
classic
do in our
example
little
of
way.
what Dr. Bhatt said earlier on. It is the individual consciousness part of it. All these people went and configured their individual. So Bhattji, last 2 minutes, a minute and for you, give me your vision. Where do you see, what is your vision, say, this relax looks like to you when you envision the future in the next 3 years? You're muted. You are muted.
First of all, Vibhuti, my wish and message is that people should start doing something. If it will be nice if they use relax to do it, but go on that path. Try to find the inner universe, and enjoy that period. Because that 1 minute I just wanted to share. Recently, I was in the hospital, and with Corona, as you said in the beginning, Wuhan virus, visitors were restricted. So I was sick, yet I had no visitors. So I had all the time to myself with my pain and with my medications and everything. And my intermittent silence lasted whole night. The second night, first night, I was kind of too bad to do anything. So even in situations where your body is no good for the outer universe, your mind is no good for the outer universe, you still have that inner universe, which is so profound. It's actually an adventure. It does become an adventure once you past these thoughts, and things are there, the new doors open, and you just get into a totally different rhythm. So I foresee that people will like to discover the deeper aspects of their inner universe. The possibilities are infinite. And I don't want to raise hopes by giving them examples of what can happen, but it's much more than just finding peace or just finding some relaxation. It's a way more positive journey than you can imagine.
Thank you very much for sharing with us that you were afflicted with the coronavirus. And I'm sure that you must have been one of the first few to get the vaccines, right? Or did you not?
It was not coronavirus. Vibhuti, I had a surgery, so it was post-surgery.
That's fine. That's okay. That's entirely. But what I'm trying to say to you is that it is important for everybody to configure. It is all about you. It's all about the individual. It's about that molecule. It's about that soul. It's about that life. That unless and until we feel part of the process, things don't happen. It is very important, talking about the corporate examples. We were working with a large company with a global presence. And, 200 senior managers were assembled in one hall in Amsterdam. We did the program in Amsterdam. And board members were also there. So it was a real senior management people trying to solve many issues. I'll give one example of that. The entire branches all over the world were talking about that we want to reduce cost, and the board doesn't collaborate, the corporate doesn't collaborate, we don't get instructions clearly. And then we embarked on that mission. Cut the story short because we have less time. In 6 hours of time, we solved the problem in 6 hours, which they had not been able to solve for 3 years. And the corporate, we arrived at the number that they were going to save $25 million in costs by doing certain practices that was well within them to do it. They didn't even need the corporate approval to do that. It was the individual responsibility of those units in various countries of the world. That's what is called. And in that process, we did one very simple thing. We taught them that if you do not know how to say no, your yes has no meaning. There was a major cultural shift. They went into silence. The teams were struggling to come to a conclusion, but it happened. Silence, believe me or not, played a role. Out of the 6 hours they came to a solution, mostly about 2.5 hours they were quiet. They were not supposed to speak with each other, but come up with their individual solution, and it happened. So my friends, all those who are watching today, go to the app. If you have iPhone or smartphones or Android, whatever, download this app, configure it for yourself, compare it with other instruments available, configure that. It's all about you eventually. Whether it is your mind, body, or your flash or life is all yours. If you are not in a relaxed state of mind, like a sportsman, you can't shoot the basket, you can't hit a six in cricket. And for doing that, you have to have a proper alignment. Relax is a great word. Everybody wants to relax, but we are all stressed out. So with this thought and this message, I will urge all of you to check it out for yourself. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you, Krishnaji, for sharing these deep thoughts, and Santoshji for wonderful insights in the corporate life. And as in my favorite movie, Sherlock Holmes and the Games of Shadows, Professor Moriarty, the evil genius, says, the human mind is full of so much conflict that all it matters is what are you supplying, bandages or bullets? But in this case, you are going to get bandages. So try it out. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, great week ahead, and catch up with you next week again.